Hey yo everybody, it's Johnny5 Alive here. Welcome back to another Park Beyond video. A bit of a messy video here. We can see here patch 2.1 has been released, but Park Beyond Extreme DLC and the 2.0 update also released in the middle of October. I hadn't had any time to actually cover it, so I recently on the weekend covered this. I was about to upload a video this week, but then 2.1 was released here today at the time of me making this video. And this has some additional changes to the coasters and some community content, as well as some modular rides and missions fixed and all that. So, they looks like they fixed the LOD of the raccoon jump animatronic as well, which is a bug that I cover in this very video. So, just to jump into game real quick, because I have basically, I want to include my old video for the 2.0 update rather than re-recording it all, because it includes a lot of feedback and stuff. But at some point I covered a bug with this coaster where if you place down a coaster, it shows the dotted line of where the flying coaster is supposed to traverse to, right? The dotted line stayed there on the prefab. That looks to be fixed now. So already I was about to mention this as developer feedback as a bug, and it looks as if that is already fixed. So I can either edit that out of the video or you could just disregard that. Now in this video, I'm going to be going over all the content, everything that you get, as well as my personal gripes with the game still to this day for the 2.1 update, things that aren't working, things that could be improved still for, again, developer feedback, but also viewer knowledge. If there's things about this game that are preventing you from playing the game and things that I cover in today's video that might make you reluctant to jump back into the game or buy it for your first time, I'm going to point them out just for pure transparency and clarity that I believe, you know, there's still some lingering issues, but then there's some good things that I can point out as well. So let's jump into my 2.0 video that I already previously recorded. Check that out. Yeah, and then we'll go from there. So let's get into it. When you download Park Beyond 2.0, you don't need the DLC. You're now going to get the community content. And this is the biggest win in my opinion, because this is cross-platform. It means this person here could have made this on their Xbox and shared it with us on PC. Or this person here could have made this on their PlayStation and then shared it with their friend on PlayStation. This here software they partnered with a company called Mod.io, and it allows them to do cross-platform sharing, which is something Steam, as of right now, can't really do. So this is cool. Like, we can search by parks, right? And we can see a bunch of parks. I'm already developer feedback. I can't scroll down really fast, and there's no scroll bar. Once there's a whole lot, you're not going to be able to scroll through these very well. But I can, like, look at this, subscribe to it, and then have it in my library. And I could also feature like food shop search. I could download people's food shops. So I could subscribe to these, and now they're in my game. Okay, fair, cool. That's community sharing, and now I'll be able to do that. So how do I play that map that I just downloaded? You have to go to Sandbox, and then you have to tab over, and this is where the community maps are. And now I can boot this up and check out this creator's park. Very cool. So the community sharing, in my opinion, is the biggest win of this update, and it is the biggest focus of this update. But there are some lingering issues with it, and we'll go over those in a second. Now, some more wins. Let's jump into one of my game saves here, the Canvas of Creativity. This is going to go over a lot of the DLC, but obviously there are improvements that come with 2.0. They did say they improved nighttime. It's less like blue, but it doesn't look perfect yet. I don't know. It still doesn't feel like nighttime to me. I'm not entirely sure. So one of the biggest improvements I want to show you for part of 2.0 is the water. I was complaining about the water in the base game, how it was like impossible. You could only make like small ponds, right? And then the moment you just touched it, it would disappear. But it seems like the water will just grow, and it will start to behave in the old way that it used to. See, it just disappears, but it comes back sometimes. It has sporadic behaviors that are not exactly predictable, but it's much improved. I couldn't do this in the base game before, and when water got this big, it would disappear indefinitely, and it was impossible to get back. So it's not impossible to get back. It actually gets back quite easily. And even though it's disappearing and you're like, oh my God, I'll never get that water back. That's how it was in 1.0. You'll never get the water back. You would just go blonk, 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 blonk. And you couldn't, it would just make these weird noises, but it does work. It works now. They also brought back, I was having issues with this where when you go into the off-roading ride, it would just do the ball, but now it's actually doing the jet ski as it was supposed to, as it did in the beta. Seems like that feature disappeared for me after the beta for some reason. So I can now make my jet ski coaster, which I'm kind of excited about, and it'll turn into a ball only when it's on land. So that's been fixed. That's a big win. Another massive improvement is the pathing system. So they now have this like spline thing. You can see this green line that wasn't in the game before. And why is this important? Because the more intricacies you add, the more complicated your paths get. If we go like uphill or something, for example, you can see some of it goes red. And depending on how you link this up, you know where you can and where you cannot link something to in the case of trying to like add a queue. So here, I know I can't build here, but I actually can build here, because it has that green bit. And if I want to link something here, I can, but I can't link something here. I can't link something there. And all of these come off green. And the system feels a lot more intuitive. It makes more sense, and it's just better. It's like a whole new tech gone into this, and I love it. So that's a massive win for sure. Another big win for 2.0 players, the coasters, people go on them now. And if we look at this, profit in the last 30 days is 980. And how do I go to my profit maps? Visitors, finances, where is it? Shops and rides revenue. The two coasters are making tons of money. That was never, ever a case for me, ever. From 1.0 all the way up to 2.0, I could never make a coaster that made money. They were always losing money. And I'm like, wow, I can actually build coasters now and get my parks going. Very, very cool. So that's a big win. Also, no more cleanliness issues. Just having a few janitors in your park. I don't even know if I have janitors yet. No, this park hasn't been running that long. However, I did play the campaign. Things started to get messy. There's trash and stuff, and I just hired a few extra janitors and pacified them. All the trash went away. My cleanliness rating was at like 40%. My park was getting dirty, and I just added more janitors, and it raised back up to 100. And I didn't see any floating puke issues on curved paths. I didn't see any floating trash. None of those issues persisted. So like you could technically play the game now and do the stuff, the theme park management that you always wanted to. That with a lot of other issues, you can check the patch notes, like stability fixes, like so many different improvements to just minor tweaks here and there. But those are kind of like the main ones that I want to go over with the 2.0 in terms of things that got me excited. There are some slight subtle tweaks to the coaster system. They said massive overhaul on the coaster system. I didn't feel it building with it. Still felt frustrating as before. And in fact, the new coaster has more bugs than ever before, and just some issues there that I was getting frustrated with. So it's not a perfect system by any means. The coaster building, it does seem slightly improved. It still has that janky jitteriness, like click 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 clicking. It's not ideal, but there are some coasters, like if we give this one a ride here, there are times, I guess I have to speed it up because it's just coming into the station now. Like you'll see, just so you can see some of the improvements, there are times where it feels better than it did before. There's still like this jerkiness, like this mechanic here, this module just doesn't make much sense. It'll go just clonk. See what happened there? The modules still have, but this, doing like a heartline roll into an inversion, this feels a lot smoother and looks cleaner in my opinion. Look at that. It's really nice. Really nice. I mean, there's still a little bit of that clickiness, but this is a massive improvement from before. Now I played with, this is with the new coaster in particular. I played with the old coaster and I still was seeing some of the old issues pop up. But overall, gotta give credit where credit is due. The coaster seems to be riding a little bit better. So in terms of 2.0, we can also share. So I wanted to mention this straight for developer feedback. If I want to download those, like I downloaded those food shops, I have to go to my food shops and look for the ones that have the cloud, right? So these are the ones that we downloaded from the workshop. So it is cool that we can find them in our game and place them down, that somebody built these. However, they're going to get lost with everything else. Look how many shops the game already has. And you have to scroll through here to find the ones with the clouds. Now, if somebody made it a particular thing like a scenery asset, it'll show up in the prefabs for the scenery assets somewhere in here. And things get lost. What needs to happen as developer feedback, there just needs to be a new button here at the top, somewhere wedged in, maybe in between scenery and modular buildings. I don't know, maybe above terraforming, anywhere on this left-hand column. Just a button that says community creations or, you know, custom assets. That way, everything that I downloaded should go into one place, because the fact that it's getting mixed up with all of everything else makes it extremely hard to find. And if we ever wanted to have like a shop contest in this game or something, it would be really hard for me to find them all. Really, really hard. But if I clear out all my downloads and just get rid of all my downloads, and the only thing that's in my game now is these, when I click the custom assets button, all of the shops should be the shops that I've downloaded. And I think that just makes it easier. It goes hand in hand with, you know, having a system like this in the game. But yes, people made these and shared them. And they look pretty clean. They look pretty good. Shows what you could do with the game. And this is like the step in the right direction, because now you can get creative. I don't even know why this is in here, because this is not made by someone, because it's already made by the developers. It's part of the game. Maybe I misplaced one. But yeah, the biggest thing here is you're able to share your creations with other people. And that is a mega win, right? Now you can get creative and go, I'm going to make the best burger shop ever and share it with the community. Big, big win. So all I would say in terms of feedback is that there needs to be a community download button, because once you have so many downloaded, I can't even sift through these already. With that, there is a new filter improvement. So if I want to filter by Western only, one of the problems it had before is if you ever close this window down and opened it back up, the filter would be lost. It remains now. So when you're building with like Western pieces and you're like going through all this and you're like, I'm building this and doing that and you know, making my thing and doing stuff, and then you're like, I gotta go do something over here, and then you come back, you're like, okay, let's resume. In the past, your filter would have been lost. Now it's not. So now you could resume building your stuff. So, and I'll probably if I would have played more, I would have probably found a lot more little like minute details like this, like, oh, I didn't notice that, or like, you know, the intricacies you'll notice as you go on playing, that there are a lot of subtle improvements overall. And I think there's a lot of to give the credit where credit is due to the developers, that they are making strides in improving this game, regardless of me feeling like it's still not there yet, for the reasons we're going to go over in developer feedback. So that's kind of like the wins for 2.0 for me. I want to discuss the DLC now. So with the DLC, you're getting 2 new game modes. We'll talk about that in a sec, but you're getting 250 assets. I laid them all out here. There's like some scaffolds, some little doodads, some signs, some graffiti, spray paint, skateboards, surfboards, lights, signs, lots of lights, some train tracks, tires, and graffiti, yeah, I don't know why there's a happy birthday wheel. I have no idea what that's all about. Some weird animatronics. This thing, but if you zoom out, it breaks. There's some artifacts. Some bigger assets up back here. This is kind of cool because you can make this into like a shop. You can make like trailer shops. You could technically put a shop in one of these as well. And there's some stuff here to make a barge, shipping containers and stuff. And then you got these big guys, and they are part of the actual new rides. Now, before I get into that, all this doodads, all these building pieces, they're great if you want to get building in this game, right? That makes sense. However, I'm still having issues with the building system, and this immediately needs to be talked about for developer feedback. So I was trying to I was like, what? I didn't realize this was the plane nose. So if we hit B, we can duplicate it. So let's just say in a scenario that I wanted to attach the plane nose to the plane. Well, when you click this, the only option is to move it, right? Now it sticks it to the mouse. Okay, sure. So we have 3 modes. We have precision, precision translation, and precision rotation, and then you could cycle them. Now, one problem with the cycling, let's just say if we started to V is to move is the hotkey. But I started to toggle through them, and I got it to a point. If I hit X too many times, it'll reset because the next in line is just move. So that, in my opinion, needs to get fixed because I'm toggling through these sometimes and I'm like, no, that's been an issue from the beginning. But they have made it so you can just toggle 1, 2, and 3 so that you don't have to like cycle through them, right? You could just go back a step. Instead of cycling forward, you can go back. And when you cycle forward, you'll inevitably get to the reset. But I just don't think it should ever reset, first of all. Now, if I want to get this onto the nose of the plane, it's very difficult. There's no like, in Planko, we have like, I think you hold V or something and it just snaps and it goes right to it. And there's like smart snapping. I was having troubles getting this on and there's no rotation snapping. So I can't rotate this 90 degrees. I have to like eyeball it. And then I have to like slide it in, slide it up, slide it over, turn it, put it in. And you have to do this for basically every asset in the game that you want to combine together, and it can become very frustrating. Now, in the case that I'm like, I'm happy, oh, I rotated to the side and it's off a second. How do I fix that? Well, the only option, you can't just go back into this object's edit mode. You can't just go, okay, like I want to edit this now. You have to click it and hit the move button. What does that do? It locks it to your mouse again. You have to restart. You can't make incremental adjustments to something that you just want to make an incremental adjustment to. You have to start all over. And the problem with that is I have to rotate it this way, get it to like 90 degrees. That's frustrating, and even more frustrating for a console player. And then I have to do it like this. And it's just a nightmare. And the undo key, if I undo it, it's not working. It's not how I had it when oh boy. You see what I'm saying here? So yeah, that's a problem. The next big problem is, okay, so the grid system, right? The grid system should be perpendicular to that of the map. And if we go to our path mode, we can see G that it is. So they have designed a grid system that aligns these grid lines align with the borders of the map lines, which are, you know, going this way and that way. It makes sense. So now I can build my whole park on a square grid if I so choose to, right? Okay, that makes sense. That's how I would like to build my park. So let's just make a square to show you what the old grid looks like. And when you hit undo, you leave pathing mode. It's a little bit annoying. So that's kind of what our grid system looks like. Well, if I go put a scenery object down, look what happens. This one scenery object is on a diagonal grid. It's diagonal. Why? Why is it the opposite of, why is it not perpendicular to the map, and why is it going in a diagonal direction to that of the paths that I just made? If my park is like this and I'm bringing in assets that are sideways, you know how hard that's going to be to rotate them into place? I have to hold R and do hard rotate and then create a new grid for this object. So, okay, fixable, sure, but the next object is also off. So every object that I bring in, I have to hold this R button down and then readjust it to, I have to rotate the grid to match that. If I bring in a shop, it's on this diagonal path. Now, if you bring it close enough to the path, it'll want to snap to it, so thank God for that, but that's only because it has a shop. But if I bring in any like custom scenery asset, it's coming in on a diagonal. So I always have to like rotate the grid every single time. If it just didn't do this, what I could do is, now that the grid is in, if it came in like this, like it should, I could just tap R 3 times to like, okay, I want it over here. I get to tap R over here. And it's like, okay, now I could grab a new asset and just tap R. Oh no, it's on the grid again. So now I have to like rotate the grid every single time. And boy, oh boy, does that become tedious and annoying. Why is there no object rotation, object and world? I should be able to toggle a button to switch between object and world. And what I mean by that is when you take a group of objects and you group them together, it has the translation of like all average of the objects. So if I had an object that was like off kilter slightly, so like this shop, for example, this is technically on object scale right now because everything in this object goes this way or this way because this object is diagonal. And if I grab that object, I wanted to slide it over, I could do that because it's on the object scale. But if I hit like X or something, if there was an option for that, it would toggle it to match that of the world scale, and now I'd be going with my map, if that makes sense. And those are like basic functions that Unreal has, like Maya, 3D Studio Max, Blender, Planet Coaster, you know, Unreal Engine, Fortnite. Basically every single game out there that has like orientation XYZ will have these basic features to make assembling things easy. So again, like if I wanted to build something from scratch, it's like coming in on this angle, and then I have to like manually align it up, but there's no snapping on the rotation, so I have to just eyeball it. It could be 1 degree off, but see, 90 degrees should be matching that, but not all objects come in equally. They come in sideways. So now it's saying 8 degrees is actually lined up with my path, because this object came in at like, I don't know, something -8 degrees. And that means nothing will ever be precise. Now I can build stuff, and it seems like the building snapping, especially for consoles, is slightly more intuitive. And you can kind of bring things up in the middle, and then you could change the grid size. So placement settings, grid width, so I can make it smaller. I don't know. It's still a little bit janky and difficult to do. But now, yeah, I mean, like, the modular building kind of works. But now I can move this around, V, and it's, you know, I can rotate it, and it's kind of to the grid that I built it on. So it's a little bit better. I wouldn't say it's perfect. The force snapping when you edit stuff is not welcome by most people. You know, like, the snapping is okay to a certain extent, but there's not a lot of hotkeys, you know, like because I can cycle the precision mode, but there's no snapping for that. So if I want to like rotate this now, it becomes extremely hard to like, oh, and I hit it too many times and it reset. So 90 degrees should be perfect, right? But if it just snapped 4 times, click, click, click to 90 degrees, that would be better. So it doesn't feel great still. That's my point. It's not, but it's definitely better than it was before. But the grid system needs to change. It absolutely needs to change. Right. With that being said, I kind of have another gripe with this game, and I've had it since the beginning. I did a whole let's play of the whole campaign, and my Razer mouse broke by the end of it. Why did it break? Because to turn your mouse in this game, you have to push down on your scroll wheel. Now, some people consider scroll wheel as a button. I do not. I consider scroll wheel as a scroll wheel. You use it to zoom, you use it to page up on Internet Explorer. It's a scroll wheel. The scroll wheel, it's depending on the mouse you buy, wasn't designed to take as many clicks as a left and right mouse button. Those buttons are designed for millions of clicks. How many of you guys have broken your scroll wheel button by pushing it too many times? And you know, they always give out, they always break, because they're meant to scroll, they're not meant to be buttons. And in this game, if we go to the controls, these are the key bindings. You cannot rebind these. You're stuck with these. These are the key binds. This is what you get. So the game absolutely needs custom key binds. I would like to make it so when I rotate, I have to hold both left click and right click. That's how other games do it. So I can hold the 2 buttons together and turn. And I'd rather drive around like that, because I can go right mouse button, then the 2 of them together and turn. But I'm middle mouse clicking right now. I don't want to break another mouse playing this game by having to use my mouse wheel to turn. Some mice don't have middle mouse buttons. I know some people that don't use a middle mouse button on their mice. And how are you supposed to play this game then? You can't rebind it. You won't be able to turn your camera. So, I mean, there always needs to be keybind options, and I've been asking for that since the beta. And for that to still not be in the game absolutely blows my mind. And like, yeah, I was willing to try playing with the middle mouse button and do a mission or 2, but ultimately, like, my fingers getting sore, and you're not meant to like hold, you push that middle mouse button more than any other mouse button, because you're turning constantly in this. You're always turning. So I don't like that whatsoever. Not only just the turning, but like being able to do custom keybinds. To move something, you don't push M, you push V. To duplicate something, you don't hit Control D, you hit B. And it's really hard to get used to these janky controls that no other game has adopted. Basically, Control Z is undo. No, it's side mouse button. What if you don't have a side mouse button? It's like you have to push this little button in the top right hand corner. That's how you have to do it. So it's like, yeah, why is Control Z not a thing? Why is Control D not a thing for duplicate? These are all just common practices that most editors use, from Fortnite to Unreal to Planet Coaster, you name it. Most games will have it. It's just intuitive and universal, and this breaks all of the standards. And if there was custom key bindings, I would just set everything back to how I like it and how most programs use it. So that's a big problem, not just the middle mouse. It's just all of it. It's the whole package, right? So to bring it all back around, all these assets, they're great. If the building wasn't so ass backwards and confusing with all the grid systems and, you know, hotkeys and things not working, no custom keybinds, no ability to have a universal grid system makes building and placing these objects extremely difficult. So all of these, like I showed you with the nose of the plane, like how are you going to assemble these together and make something if it takes that long and it's that difficult to do? I'm just going to go, no thanks. So what, you know, if you're going to make us, or if you're going to charge us money for these things, you got to give us the tools to be able to use them very smoothly, very rapidly, very intuitively. Otherwise, no one's going to really want these decorations. They're just going to kind of play the game for the simulation aspect and plop a few community custom blueprints down, which you can do now, but they still come in on the diagonal grid and not the normal grid. So it's still kind of hard to place things. So these to me feel like, you know, while it's a big win for your $15 for the DLC, not a lot of these would get used by me personally. I'm like, I don't really have a use for these because I don't really like how finicky the building system is. So what else do you get? Well, you get this this ride. This flat ride. It spins around and you can impossify it. Another win with the sandbox mode is you now get it unlimited possification juice. You also get this ride where it spins around, spins and goes up and drops. And again, unlimited impossification in sandbox mode, which is great. And then these things will actually fly around. So if we fast forward it now, you can see what these two rides are doing. These guys are going to jump up in the air. And these guys are going to go around the half pipe. And these are pretty awesome. They fly around. I like it. They got jetpacks and you can ride it. Whee! It's a good flat ride. The flat rides in this game have always been good. No complaints there. So you get two new ones. They have prefab shops that use all the new blueprints. So this is kind of an example of what you can build with those pieces over there, right? And then you get this new coaster. With this new coaster type, there's two ways you can make it go. You can go inverted coaster like it is here, and then you could turn it into a flying coaster as well. So this is an inverted coaster, standard 4-seater inverter, but this one is a flying coaster. And the way that it works is that when you come from airborne to track, it remains, see, it remains as a flying coaster. So if you want to actually make it a flying coaster from the beginning of the coaster, you have to have at least one segment where it flies. And then from there, it'll fly the rest of the way. I do think they should just have a module on there that says, like, switches it from inverted to flying. And then, because another problem is if you want it to go back to inverted after flying, you can't really do that from my understanding. It's stuck as flying the whole way through. Unless, oh no, unless you add like this drop module. This drop module will always drop in inverted mode and not flying mode for whatever reason. So if you fly, because I did try this, if you fly and then you drop, then it goes back to inverted. But there's no way to just like switch it back and forth, like deploy it so that it's like lying down. Oh yeah, so this one started off as flying, but you can see it like plop, plop, it flips it. And now it's an inverted coaster, but it looks so janky and weird. And with this, it should just like, you should be able to aim this down so it doesn't like go straight and drop. You should be able to aim it, but you can't rotate this. So it's a bit janky, but this is supposed to be like a free fall segment and you'll see it coming around here, but they added new modules. So yeah, you can like free fall there. So the big issue that I'm having with this new flying coaster is you can make other coasters fly and paraglide as well. But look at this. It travels at 30 miles an hour, and I can show you that here. And I have thoroughly tested this. No matter what, I can get this coaster up to 100 miles an hour, 200 miles an hour, and then go into paragliding mode. It's crashing. And then I can go into paragliding mode and it'll always reduce its speed to 30 kilometers an hour. So let's throw it into test mode, speed it up. It travels at 30. That is not flying to me. That is granny crawling. It doesn't even look like it's on rockets. This thing should pick up the momentum that the coaster had previously. If this was coming in hot at 90 miles an hour, it should fly at 90 miles an hour. Imagine you had this big canyon and this coaster's flying down at 180 miles an hour. And then it turns into paragliding mode and it just brakes. You could actually use this as trim brakes. I've tried it because it goes at 30 miles an hour or 30 kilometers an hour. So it'll just crawl and just slowly like and it finally makes it across your canyon. This is not flying. These people would just fall. I don't think you could rocket and carry your weight or carry the weight of an entire train at 30. It looks so stupid. I hate to say it. I was so excited for this paragliding thing and to find out both the paraglider and the jetpack modules can only ever travel at 30 kilometers an hour made the whole thing completely pointless to me. It should pick up the momentum that the coaster coaster had previously. It should just work like the coaster track works. If I go down, it should go faster down. When you go straight down with the jetpacks, straight down, it still does it at 30 kilometers an hour. It would be free falling with jets. So it should just work like a regular coaster spline, but be invisible. The spline should be invisible. That's pretty much all I wanted from this, is just copy paste the splines that you give us with roller coasters. Just take that spline and hide it. Just hide the display function. Literally, they could have just taken the current design of the coaster, and then the module would just hide the track, and then the coaster would just get jets. It doesn't seem that complicated. Instead, they rebuilt it from the ground up, and now it has a whole bag of issues of its own. Oh, so I'm not very happy with the new coaster, considering there's like a limited amount of coasters in the game already. One big complaint that I've been asking for since the beginning of this game's inception, if we look at the wild mouse, that's not a wild mouse. A wild mouse, if we go to the station, is one train, right? One little cart. That's a wild mouse. But if we edit the station, we can have train size 6, or we can have one train. Where's the second option for the amount of trains? How about we have one train, train size 1, but 6 of them. This one leaves, then the next one leaves, then the next one leaves. The only way to make that work, and it is possible in this game, is to split it 6 times. And it comes out and it hits a splitter, and then it hits a splitter, then it hits a splitter, then it hits a splitter, and now you have a mine train coaster. Well, if the coasters are capable of running on the tracks individually, why can't they leave the station individually? It just makes no sense to me. And it's super frustrating that that's still not in the game yet, because other than that should be the main feature of a wild mouse, is the ability to have these little tiny cars. If it's just a big long train, how is it a wild mouse? And you know, it's like, well, so there's some issues with the original coasters and even the new one, but they're headed in the right direction. But these things that I just pointed out need to change. How is this flying? These actually flying things, they move faster. Look at that. They're hauling ass. They move faster than the coaster does. It makes no sense to me that these are technically flying. I want to fly faster. It's such a good idea. It's just not executed well. So that's what you're getting with the DLC. You get the new coaster, the 2 new Flatrides, these assets, plus the new campaign. So let's go check that out. So if we go to the campaign, there's a new tab now for Beyond Extreme. It's not as good as the main campaign. The boardroom only consists of Sophia and Blaze, 2 characters, and Blaze gets duplicated. So she's been cloned a bunch of times. I don't know. I don't really understand what's going on here, but I guess it's part of the objective. There's not as many challenges and choices as the main campaign did. It definitely feels like a dumbed down version of the main campaign, and we'll show you that here with the one that I played. All right, so I wanted to jump ahead to this save here. I built what was kind of like a standard park. I made like this really crazy coaster that starts off as a flying coaster, and then it traverses and flies around, and then eventually it'll turn into an inverted coaster. It does these transfer tracks things and does all this craziness. It's quite a wild coaster. I basically was playing the objectives to do all the things that it needed to do in order to beat the objective. So it's a crazy coaster. But the nice thing about building this here is I was able to charge $8 and the queue is full. And in this objective, everybody are clones. They're Blaze clones. So with that, the objective is to try to get your theme park enjoyable by adults, because Blaze is considered an adult. Now, as I was playing through this, as you can see, I'm going bankrupt. I ran into a few issues on the 2.0 patch. I don't know how much more fixed it's going to be on the 2.1 patch, but the one thing is everything was catching fire with the amount of, I had 4 mechanics. Yeah, I have 5 mechanics. Things were catching fire, but I noticed with the 2.0 update, they added this new button called Issue Staff Order Maintain Flatride. So you can click this button and force a mechanic to go fix a ride. So while I was having issues with lots of rides still going on fire because they weren't being properly maintained by the mechanics, you can now at least click the ride and say, hey, get this mechanic over here to fix it. So I wanted to highlight that as a pro and a big win for this update, because hey, if the AI aren't working for whatever reason, you can force them to work, and that's great. Also, you can see I have a cleanliness rating rating of 98. So hiring my janitors, there's no more floating puke issues that I can tell of, no floating trash issues. So my paths are nice and clean and everything's working well. So if everything's going good and I'm able to put out my rides, they're not on fire, my coaster's making big money, what's wrong? Why am I going bankrupt? Well, I was having issues with, this is still like a prominent thing, but basically my rides aren't getting anybody in the queue, and they're starting to come on now because I would close it and reopen it, but periodically the guests will just lose interest. And these rides in particular, adults like them, right? You can click on it and see that adults like it. Because everyone in my park is technically an adult, all of my rides, all of my food, and my coaster particularly, everything is catered towards adults. And I have enough in my park in terms of like everything to meet their needs. And if we go into our park management and we look at like the needs, I am having issues with Euphoria, but I believe this objective, it stated that you needed to get Blaze clones euphoric for them to leave the park with a high amount of Euphoria, if I understood it correct. And paramedics are normally supposed to cure Euphoria. Whichever way you flip it, if they're not supposed to have Euphoria, then the paramedics are not doing their jobs. And if they're supposed to have Euphoria, then this is actually good. Whichever way you look at it, technically it's going good. And unlike my previous scenarios that you've seen me play in the past, I had unhappiness meters, preferred ride meters, like everything was in the red, everything was going to hell in a handbag, and it was just devastating. This time around, everybody's pretty satisfied. And if we look at my like happiness, 104% happiness, they're 70% happy with the food, 75 with the drinks, 75 with the toilets, and 81% with the energy. Generally speaking, my park is technically successful. The cleanliness rating is through the roof. The guest happiness is through the roof. The problem that I'm struggling with is the visitors. At this point of the game, I should have 1,800 guests in this park, or I have the capacity to have that. And I did read in the 2.0 patch notes that they said the more you build, the more visitors will come. Doesn't seem to be working for me, at least for this scenario. So I don't know if this is an issue with the DLC or if this is transferable to the base game. I have a feeling that maybe because they're all blazes, they're all adults, that the simulation isn't working as well as intended to be, and I cannot confirm if the game plays and feels better unless I go play through the campaign again. But because this is reviewing the DLC and the DLC missions that it comes with, it should still be playable and fun, and here I am having a bankrupt issue. And as you can see, all of my flat rides are basically empty in queue, which means the profit margins for all of these rides are all in the red. So a lot of my shops that are orientated towards adults and a lot of my rides that are orientated towards adults are losing massive amounts of profit. However, my coaster is making big cash for, I mean, it says $49. At one point, it was up to $800, but this is a good example of fluctuation. Why was my coaster making $800 per month profit at one point, and now it's only $49? I have no idea. So there are still massive fluctuations in the game mechanics, in the simulation mechanics, so much to a point where my cash was at $1,200 a month. I was making good money. I put it on fast forward. I started to make a coaster over here, and then as I left the coaster to go check on my park, we plummeted in cash. I couldn't complete the build of the coaster, and my balance was at negative 2,500. I went from a 4,000 differential from making $1,200 a month to tanking $2,500 a month negative profits from a profit margin, when in fact I hadn't changed anything. So what happened? Well, people stopped going on my rides. These queues were full, these queues were full, these queues were full, these queues were full. Everything was full, everything was bustling. My park was on track to being a proper theme park until they just decided they got bored of these rides. But if they got bored of these rides, what am I supposed to do about it? Just delete it? I don't think that is the solution. And I've closed it, reopened it, and sometimes that brings interest in, sometimes. But this is the brand new ride that you get with the expansion pack, the DLC, and not a lot of interest is here. This is losing profit, or now it's profit $72 a month. Yeah, so some of these rides, as you can see here, this is losing $400 a month. And I don't know what I'm supposed to do to increase the profit gains on any of these rides. Now, there's two ways to look at this. we could take a look at the overall graphs of our income and go, okay, coasters are profitable. If I were to restart this scenario, we just make more coasters because coasters work now in this 2.1 update. And the Jet Hunter seems to be very popular with the guests. The half pipe is decently okay, and that's pretty much it. There's a few shops that are good. Pretty much everything else, like don't build the ghost house, don't build the pirate ship, don't build the bubbly balloons, don't build the ring of fire. These are all things that are going to lose you profit. Or if you had enough coasters, you could offset the cost of the negative loss. And maybe the AI, I need more guests in my park problem where I'm not hitting that maximum capacity could in fact be relative to the amount of coasters you have in your park. But the problem is, while I was building my second coaster with a pretty standard layout, I went bankrupt in the process. I believe what I have here with the amount of shops, the amount of Flatrides, and the one coaster that's making money, that this should be a net positive park, which it was at $1,200 a month. I should make enough money to then expand and continue playing the game. I'm doing the things that I'm supposed to do. The game incentivized me to build 4 Flatrides. I did that. To open up 6 shops, I did that. To make a certain roller coaster with certain things, I did that. And then I achieved the goals that were required and then went bankrupt. So by playing the objective the way that I was intended to play it, I somehow yet again lost. And this is a very common and familiar feeling to that of which I played the campaign. I was doing things as intended, and then I would go, oh, look what happened. But there were a lot of issues and bugs that caused me to lose the game in those situations that don't necessarily occur in this recent update. But there are still issues, like these brand new rides may or may not get guests on them. So when you first put them down, they're bustling, everything's good. You make another one, everything's good, everything's bustling. And you know, I've tried to impossify them and hope like that would change things, and sometimes that doesn't even do anything. So that one is impossified, that one is impossified, and the queues are still empty. So it was like I'm doing the things that I'm supposed to be doing, but nothing's happening as a result. So if we speed it up here, did impossifying this haunted house change things? Maybe they're going to be interested in going on this ride now. But this, from my experience, as you can see with this impossified ride and this impossified ride, that is very limited. So I don't know how to feel about this. I played the game the pretty standard way and lost, technically lost. If I were to tackle this again, I could probably beat it, right? My objective this time around, if I were to restart, would be to focus on the coasters like I should. And that's a very good thing. And if I have enough coasters that are profiting and making a good amount of money per month, then they should make up for the deficit of any red rides. The problem that I'm having here is, why is there not more guests coming into the park when I have a capacity of 800 and not even half of that is met when I have more than enough rides? Nobody's not satisfied with the amount of rides. In fact, everybody's satisfied that there are enough rides here, and I've been playing the game as intended. But there's a lot of red here that I believe shouldn't be here. And that's where I feel like there's still some subtle improvements that need to be made with the simulation aspect of things, especially because I have a pretty limited size park. All of these queues should be full. Everyone should be satisfied. Everyone, you know, all this stuff should be working, and there should be more guests to a point where I have 1,000 guests and I don't have enough rides to satisfy them, and the game is requesting me to add more in. I feel like if I tackled this a second time around, I would just make more coasters because they seem to be working now. That's a plus. And I believe if you're going to jump back into this game and play through the campaign, you should have a better experience and a better time with the coaster mechanics and building of the coasters and the profit of those coasters. But you might randomly still run into issues where, hey, I just impossified this ride and they've already lost interest and nobody cares about this ride anymore. I don't understand what's causing that. So the magnetism that draws the guests over, the AI, is weighted so heavily on the coasters now and other things that for some reason other areas of the game have suffered as a result. There are still some lingering issues that are causing what should be a profitable park to be still in the negative. And while I can approach this differently, trying it again, I could probably make a successful park the second time around. I did everything that the game asked me to, and I was focused on doing the objectives and the challenges that were were faced in front of me. And by going through that process, I eventually inevitably led myself to bankrupt myself. If the park gave me the challenge to build 2 or 3 coasters, I probably wouldn't be in the red right now, because those 3 coasters would be profiting so high, they would make up for the deficit of the things that the game actually asked me to build. But yeah, because the game asked me to do certain things, and I did those, and it eventually led me to the red, I don't know what to think. Overall, I'm excited that the coasters there's people in queue for the coasters, that the AI is working better, that if things are catching on fire, I could tell the mechanics to fix it, that there isn't floating puke and trash issues everywhere, that I can fix my cleanliness rating, and generally my visitors are happy. Although, I still feel like there should be more guests flooding into the park if I have the capacity for them, incentivizing me to make more stuff to fulfill the needs of that many more guests. And I'm still a little bit sad to say and see these issues of empty queues in a park that has more than enough stuff for the capacity that is available to me. Again, overall, it's better, but I'm still having issues. I didn't beat this scenario on my first attempt, doing the things that the game asked me to do, and in fact, I bankrupted myself and I have to restart. That is something that I'm all too familiar with in the playing the base campaign, is restarting, because of issues that were not my own. And therefore, I still feel like there are some things that need to be improved upon for me to give this a thumbs up, but it definitely feels a lot better. And part of me feels like I want to make a park full of coasters because I know that they're going to be successful. But there are still random bugs that don't really make sense. And maybe that's where things are going wrong. I don't know what that is. But yeah, it's not perfect, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see for yourself. All right, let's move on to the last topic. And last but not least, I want to show you the community maps. So we downloaded Next World. It should say the creator's name. I don't know why it doesn't, but if I were to showcase this person's park, I would like to give them a shout out, but it just says Next World. Maybe it does when you subscribe to it, but it should show it there in the list, created by. Right, so we can see somebody's park here. Now, there is no hide UI and there is no presentation mode. So I can't hide all this UI and walk around the park. There's no Tegid cam. So if I select a guest and go into first person, look at that. All the UI is hidden. This is what I wanted from the game, but I can't move around. It just changes the camera angle. So I want to just be able to walk around the park like this, but be able to control this character with WASD and walk around at kind of like this speed with all the UI hidden. This is great. I feel like I could immerse myself in this park, but you can't do that. I am not in control, so we just have to like experience what the guest is doing today, what Katie Watson is doing. Now, if I go into free cam mode, look how fast the camera moves. I'm gonna have to go in and edit all of my settings so that W is slower, but then when I want to actually play the game, I have to switch all my settings back again. So there's no like fine line of like presentation mode versus like editing mode. We're always in editing mode. So I figured, okay, well, why don't I pick up an Xbox controller? Because at least then I can like push on the joystick. Like I'm pushing on it like, I don't know, 1% right now. And that makes me move around at a steady pace. We have this big stupid circle in the middle of our screen and we're still in editing mode. So everything we look at, it's just getting highlighted. It's like highlighting the paths. It's highlighting this. But this is like the best I can do, right? So we can walk around parks like this, but the UI is not hidden and it's constantly selecting things. It's not the most immersive way to enjoy the park experience. It's quite distracting. So there needs to be a hide UI button along with the custom keybinds, as I mentioned, and then a presentation mode or just being able to hide the UI in general so that it doesn't select things when the UI is hidden, because that is part of the UI, is selecting things, so that we can walk around people's parks and enjoy them. We have this big stupid button at the top that says I'm in free camera mode and it's distracting. We don't get the full, the full perspective of everything. Now, it's not the end of the world. I can still now look at people's parks, and this park's looking kind of cool. So last but not least, if you made it to the end of this video, I would like to know, do you want me to download people's parks and explore them at least in this view? And maybe I'll try my hand at 1 or 2 and just see what the community's reaction is. But I definitely wish it gave a little, like when I loaded up the park, it said who it was created by and what they say about their park, so that we could give these people proper shout outs and a little bit more information. Unfortunately, I didn't see anything about that when I was going into my loaded maps. So it's kind of cool. We can see all this stuff that's been built by somebody, but it is hard to, like that's where it's like a park spotlight. It's jittering around, it's bouncing, it's hard to turn. we're constantly selecting things. It's not exactly ideal. It's not a smooth and steady camera, as you can tell, as I'm walking around and I'm constantly selecting things, and it makes the experience of just walking through a park less fun. So I think there'd be like a Tegid cam where you can actually control a guest and walk them around would be massive. So between the, you know, custom keybinds, the UI, the sim management still not working properly for me, the DLC was a bit of a flop in my opinion. The coaster only traveling at 30 miles an hour. There's all sorts of stuff. The 2.0 update that you get with the game is a massive win, from the water editing, the improved pathing, the coasters actually guests are wanting to ride them. But as you saw from my campaign scenario, it failed. Now I have this weird suspicion that I did fail the new DLC map, but if I went and played one of these maps, I feel like it might be successful. And I don't know until I try it, and I haven't tried it yet. I did try the DLC, and it went miserably yet again. But they said they rebalanced all these maps, and maybe just the Beyond Extreme, I'm running into issues because the Blaze clones, they're not actually real guests with like adults, children, teenagers, and a mix. It was only adults, and for whatever reason, that was having an impact on stuff. So maybe the simulation is better for some of these, but the simulation for this went to hell in a handbag, and it probably shouldn't have. So I'm at about an hour. I fully covered everything in 2.0 that I wanted to cover, my developer feedback for all of it. I showed you guys what the DLC has. I don't necessarily think the DLC is worth buying at this moment, not until they improve that flying modules and make those things more fun and more awesome. And the assets are kind of not very useful because the building is still finicky and difficult. So I'd like to see massive improvements with all that. The custom keybinds added in, the hide UI, all of the things that I mentioned. Once those get fixed, I can finally say Park Beyond is ready to play. I thought 2.0 was going to be it, but it looks like we'll be waiting till 2.5 or maybe 3.0. As of right now, I got frustrated yet again on another map after all of those emissions or those things with the AI have been claimed to be fixed. I was super curious and excited to go back and play through the campaign with bustling income and things working and get decorating, but I'm fighting the controls with building stuff. I'm still losing money when I'm playing the game, so I'm like, what's the point? It's still not ready. And at this point, I feel like it's the boy who cried wolf situation, where it keeps claiming to be fixed and I jump in and it's not. So I think 3.0 has to be it. It has to have the custom key guides. It has to have all the coaster improvements. It has to have the actually properly fixed UI on all of the maps before I can give it my thumbs up. And at that point, if I check it out and it has all the same issues, we're moving on. We're going beyond Park Beyond after 3.0. But until then, I'm taking a break because I didn't see enough here to get me excited to play the campaign. I was almost there. If I would have played Multiples of Mayhem, beaten it, had a good time, gone on to the next one, but I went bankrupt again. I did something wrong, and I don't know what I did wrong because I did everything right. I would have probably played through the campaign. But we're not there yet. And I want to play this game. So I keep giving it a second chance. And at this point, I'm going to give it a third chance and wait for 3.0. So best of luck to the developers. I hope my feedback helped you. And for all the people watching this, it's still not ready yet. So it is better than it was before. I'll give them that. But for someone like me who's already played through the whole campaign and had a lot of issues, there are still things that I'm like, I need XYZ to be changed before I do it all over again. So for me, it's not personally there yet. So hopefully you guys found this information helpful. Hopefully the developers see this video and find the information helpful. That's going to do it for me in today's Park Beyond video. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye now.